Hi, Lucy. Great to have you on the Polypody Review.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to get the chance to chat about herbs with you, Ollie.
Oh yeah, no, it's great to talk to you as well because you have such a depth of experience, and everybody knows your books, and you have this enormous fan base. So it'd be nice to find out a bit more about the background of you. So we have a standard first question, which is when did you realize you were a plant person? Was it you?
Ooh.
Was it
Well, that's one of those questions I think is how long is a piece of string? Because I've got sort of some of my earliest memories of toddling around the garden and being fascinated by plants. So I think maybe some of us are just born with that
right?
propensity to
Hmm.
to just really feel comfortable around plants.
So it was a very early
But
age.
yeah, and I think also I recognized that I was in a really fortunate position to have access to a garden and outdoor space and parents that were interested in gardening. So I had a massive head start.
Whereabouts was that garden?
So I was actually born in Windsor. It would sound, I could say in the shadow of Windsor Castle, but it's nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Windsor Castle at all. But it was quite a kind of leafy suburb type of place,
Right.
and and I enjoyed hanging out in the garden, and I also enjoyed. I had both of my grandmothers were very garden and plant people minded. So as I got a bit older and I would go and hang out with my grandparents, I was always in the garden chatting to one of them had two fantastic gardeners called Ernie and Bert. And Ernie and Bert used to kind of chat to me. I think my grandmother was probably having a break from me pestering her, and I'd
Yeah.
be going in the garden and look, and always drawn to those fragrant herbs and the rosemary in particular. I just loved it. And my other grandmother had an amazing garden full of clove pinks edging the borders
Yeah.
and herbs everywhere spilling out of the beds. And one of those gardens that's like a dream with sort of straight paths made of bricks and then all these cloves spilling out, clove pinks and herbs. And it just if I'm ever feeling a bit like I want to be transported somewhere peaceful, I go back to that
Oh, yeah.
garden. It's just wonderful, isn't it? Magical places, herb gardens.
Yes, they are beautiful, wonderful, and particularly when they become mature like that, because you can't
Yeah,
just
yeah.
put in some paths and plants of herbs. They've got to be given a chance to
Oh,
bed in and things, haven't they? And like, yeah.
yeah. And it must have had an influence because then I think as time moved on, I was given my own patch of little garden that I was
Mhm.
allowed to cultivate, and all I wanted to do was to grow herbs. I wasn't interested in anything unless it was herbal. It wasn't going in my patch.
Was it quite early on that you realised that herbs could be medicines as well as
Yeah,
just?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I remember that when I was about, I'm guessing I was about 14 or something. I was a bit of a nerd at school, and I won this class prize or the year prize. And they had a system where they would get you a book token, and you could get the book of your choice and then stick
Oh, yeah,
stick the prize
yeah,
template thing. What's it called? Frontispiece. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, that in the front, sort of
yeah.
saying, that you'd won this prize. And that was my first herbal. I spent my prize book token on a herbal and read it cover to cover again and again.
Are we allowed to know which herbal it was?
Do you know what? It was I can't remember. It was probably, I say it was a herbal. I think it was a simple kind of, make your own
I
herbal remedies type book.
ideal for a 14-year-old then.
Absolutely. I was obsessed.
And did you then go on to study herbally things?
No, because being a bit of a nerd, I think I was funneled into this is just such a tragedy, isn't it, with herbal medicine? But one's peers and perhaps one's parents think that at that time, look, I'm quite old, so I hope it's changed now. But in those days, I was led to believe that it wasn't a proper career.
Yeah,
And also, that if you are seen as being a sort of quite academically able student, then you're
yeah,
funneled into, a university
yeah,
education. Um, I mean, I now, obviously nowadays, herbal medicine is a university education, but in those days it wasn't. And, but I don't regret it because I ended up studying forestry and agriculture at Oxford, which
Well,
was hugely influential into the way that I work with
herbal
herbs.
adjacent, isn't it? So
Yeah, yeah.
definitely. What an interesting topic to do, particularly back in the day. So, and at Oxford University as well. Wow. So, where did you become a forester after that then?
Yeah, I spent one of the amazing things about that degree, which is no longer offered, was that it's
So many degrees. Yes.
basically as well as learning about plant biochemistry and cultivation and animal production, all aspects of applied growing and
Mm.
so you're learning about botany and ecology and soils, and it was fascinating. But one of the things about that is that it's also a business degree because you can't study those subjects without learning about cash flows and projected income
Right.
discounted over 40 years when you're growing a crop of trees. And,
Mhm.
I loved all of that.
Wow. And so you were a forester for, where were you a
Well,
forester?
I was I set up my own little consultancy where I was advising farmers on looking after their broadleaved woodlands because in those days, I mean, gosh, Ollie, it's really showing my age. But in those days, the broadleaf woodlands in farms were just being got rid of because the farmers didn't see the value in them.
Absolutely.
And I kept trying to bang the drum about if farmers see a value in the products like the
Yeah.
hazel coppice or the timber, they will preserve them. And
Yeah.
so I set up this little consultancy and went around encouraging these small woodland owners to look at their woodlands in a different light and grow more conservation friendly trees. And of course, I absolutely love trees. So it was heaven on earth.
And were the farmers generally sympathetic?
Yeah, I think that my trick was to put some pretty hard economic facts on the table.
Right.
And one of the things that was happening at the time was that when farmers or small woodland owners wanted to clear an area and sell it,
Yeah.
they tended to just sell it to a firewood merchant because
Uh,
that was easier.
yeah.
And I actually would say to them, look, you've got plenty of trees there that would be firewood, but you've also got one or two veneer grade trees, and that's one, and that's one. And if you sell them separately to a veneer merchant, you're probably going to make more than all of the firewood. So to just get people to be a bit more
Yes.
discerning about their marketing.
What is a veneer grade wood? Just out of interest. That's perfect.
Well, the main market for veneer is unfortunately coffins. So a tree needs to have at least a 6 foot, completely
Oh,
smooth, no branches coming out, beautiful, smooth trunk. Probably a bit more than 6 foot, but it's because most of it does go.
I do know, of course. Yeah, I'm glad to say both my parents are buried in wickerwork coffins, so I'm
Oh, well, that's the way to go.
half the price. But anyway, that's the
I think this was a long time ago,
yeah.
though.
No,
So
they're still very popular veneer coffins still. I just get my
are they?
backlog.
Oh, it's-
Anyway, sorry. So so okay, you're working as a forester, wonderful job. What happened next?
well, one of my tutors, he's my forest economics tutor, Philip Stewart. Amazing, amazing tutor because he used to, at Oxford, it's always one to one. And I'd go in for my forest economics talk with him, and he and I would just talk about Buddhism. He was an expert, as well as being a forestry tutor. He was an expert on comparative religion, and he'd written quite a few books on Islam. And he and I just found out, he found out that I was really interested in Buddhism at that time, and in particular Tibetan Buddhism. And we just used to talk about comparative religion. And then at the end of the tutorial, he'd just say, "Oh, by the way, can you write an essay on, this forestry economic
Well,
topic?"
I have to ask you. So, why are you interested in Tibetan Buddhism? I mean, why not? But what sparked that? Into
Well, yeah, so if we backtrack before university, so after school, no, maybe, yeah, round about early days of school, I was sent to a boarding school. And when I arrived, I was feeling a bit lost and sort of, what's it all going to be
Yeah.
like? Um, and I went into the school library. And I was just sitting in there. I suppose libraries are so peaceful, aren't they? And
Yeah.
you could just sort of, I felt like I just needed some time to gather my thoughts. And I was just glancing at the shelf and I found 7 Years in Tibet by Heinrich Harrer, which I read, and just something about that description of Tibet and Tibetan culture just really clicked with me.
Right. Right.
And I
Yes.
think that was probably the start of it.
Yes. Wonderful. It's interesting. That's a classic book as well, isn't it? So, okay. So we'll fast forward again. So you used to chat to your tutor about Tibetan Buddhism, and then
Yeah.
you left university and you were working as forester. And then what happened?
Well, then I started to, I mean, I was in consultancy for quite a while, which was lovely. Going to, for example, Snowdonia, doing soil surveys and things like that. Environmental, I started working for a bigger engineering company, and I loved going and doing these surveys of forests and trees and things. But it was always a bit sad because it meant that I was surveying them because something horrible was going to happen to them, and that became a bit sort of, ugh. But
Yeah.
anyway, during that time, I used to go to Sami Ling Tibetan Center, and that's when, I mean, if you fast forward quite a few years, in 1993, I met my spiritual teacher, Akon Rinpoche, and I got wind of the fact that a Tibetan medicine course
You
was in
just
the
tell us a
air.
little bit about your spiritual teacher for those who aren't that familiar with Tibetan medicine.
Well,
And
Akon Rinpoche, so in Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, it's considered to be really helpful if you've got a spiritual teacher or a spiritual friend, because we can all think that we're doing the right thing with our meditation, but it's good to have someone to kind of like say, well, hang on, you probably need to do this type of meditation. So he was amazing. Sadly, he died in 2013. But his influence on me, it affects everything that I do. I constantly think back to the conversations that I've had with him. And he was the reason that I work the way I do and that I'm in this practice. So I was spending time at Sami Ling, and when I heard that there was going to be a Tibetan medicine course, um, I just got a feeling that it was something that I really wanted to do.
so where was where was the Sammy Ling center? That in
That Sammy Ling is still there. It's in Eskdale Muir on the Scottish borders.
really? Oh goodness, okay.
So
And was
yeah.
your teacher visiting there, or was he? Did he?
No, he was gifted that center. Well, he was a refugee from
Oh,
Tibet, and he
yeah.
came over in 1959 with two other lamas and his brother, and a whole cohort of people. But
Yes,
he was then gifted this center that had been a Christian center, and he made that into a Tibetan Buddhist center in the Scottish borders, and it's still there, and it has the first Tibetan temple that was created in the West, and
wonderful.
a sight to behold, actually. But yeah.
So so was the course going to be taught at the center?
Well, at this early stage, it was just sort of rumors that it might be happening.
Right.
Um, but then more information came out, and we found out that this Lama, or very amazing Tibetan doctor called Kempo Truro Sainam, was going to come over to Sami Ling for 2 months every year for 4 years, and that a small select group of Westerners were going to be taught. And I was like, I need to be there. Um, and I was very excited about it because I just, when you get that feeling,
Yeah,
it's just your destiny.
this is the crossroads. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had actually previously asked a lama, another lama called Tranga Rinpoche, to because I'd heard about it and I thought I really want to do it, but I wasn't sure because it would involve, giving up my job and going back self-employed and this, that, and the other. And I'd asked this Trangri Rinpoche's advice, and he had done a bit of a divination. I mean, that's a long story, and not don't worry, I'm not going to go into it. But he'd done this divination, and he had said to me, "You must study Tibetan medicine." And
Yeah.
so then later, when I heard about it at Sammy Ling, I thought, oh well, obviously he said that to me, so I will apply for a place and do that course. And you can imagine that I was really gutted when I asked my spiritual teacher, like, could I be one of those people that does this
Yeah.
course? And he just said no. And and I thought, oh, this isn't how it was supposed to, this story was supposed to work. And especially when the other, but I didn't say, oh, well, Tranga Rinpoche said that I should. I thought that probably wasn't protocol.
Right.
So I went and licked my wounds and thought about it, and I realized that I had probably not considered what an incredible opportunity it would be for 12 people or so to
Mm.
study with this master. And really, it wasn't something to be taken lightly. And it was much more than just, oh, I'd love to do it. It's more
Right.
like it comes with a massive responsibility because those people that were lucky enough to receive that teaching would have a responsibility to
Lineage holders,
your
wouldn't you?
lineage and to preserve it, because
Mhm.
one of the reasons I feel that we were being taught in the West away from China was that perhaps some aspects of the teaching could be taught more freely.
Right.
It was never specifically said, but that was what I got the
Was the
impression.
teacher in China then?
Hmm?
Where was the teacher when he wasn't
Well,
in?
he was the professor of the Lhasa Mensakhang, which is the
Mm, goodness, yes.
hospital and um, yeah, and Tibetan Medical College in Lhasa.
Wow.
And so, and it was a big deal for the Chinese authorities to allow somebody like that to come, away from his job and his students for two
Yeah.
months a year. But I think I did reflect on that I'd gone in perhaps with a bit of an entitled
Right.
attitude when
Yeah.
I asked. And so I went and I decided to ask again. And again, the answer was no. And so I was really gutted. And you don't keep going and bugging llamas, but please. And I think that looking back on it now, if I hadn't have had that divination with Trangu Rinpoche, I would not have had the guts to ask a third time
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
because I felt like,
Yeah. And how
that
did you ask the same way the third time or?
no, because each time I asked, I was really trying to think, think more about what it meant
Yeah. Yeah.
and to really reflect on the commitment.
Yeah.
And so the third, and also I did think that there's this tradition in Tibet of asking three times to show commitment.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I heard
So
that.
I thought I'm going to give it one more
Yeah.
shot. And if that doesn't work, then that's it. I
Yeah.
accept it. I accept.
Mhm.
And I said that I'd reflected on it and I realized what an incredible opportunity it would be. And I don't take it lightly. And I feel that I could really be able to bring benefit to others from, I had genuinely reflected on it. I wasn't
Yeah.
just saying what I thought he wanted me to hear. And anyway, I said I would do anything if it meant that I would be able to study because I just felt that it was what I needed to
Your
do.
heart.
And
Yeah.
he said, well, you could if you commit to studying Western herbal medicine and qualifying as a Western herbalist after you've done the course. And then after that, if you commit to opening a practice which combines Tibetan medicine with Western herbal medicine.
Wow. And you
So I
said,
said, yes, of course.
yeah.
But that meant that I had to do, after I'd done those 4 years of Tibetan medicine, I then had a couple of years off and then I studied 6 years to become a herbalist.
And who did you study that with?
I studied with the IRCH
Oh, right. Okay.
because I could do it as a kind of correspondence with
Yeah. Yeah.
occasional in-person clinic
Yeah.
days.
All
And
that.
I had, by then, I had two kids and like,
Much easier.
yeah. And it was, and it worked really well, but it was
You,
pretty tough doing all of that.
you might not know this, but your Lama, in fact, asked all the other 11 candidates to do the same thing?
No, I'm the only one doing it.
But had he asked them to, or were you the only one? What was it
Um, I
like?
think each person is really interesting because you can only piece it together because
Well, exactly, yes.
and also, there is this I mean, I'm blabbing it all now, but there is this sort of protocol where you don't talk at the time, don't
Yeah,
talk too
because you've
much
done it
about.
now. So that's
Oh,
fine.
I've done it now. I'm okay, but 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 I know that, for example, one of the students that had come over from Spain, called Imogen, my teacher Akon Rinpoche asked her to open a urine analysis clinic in Spain.
Interesting.
But she was a pharmacist, and I just think that people's tasks
Well,
depended on their own background.
you could look into you and think, okay, that's what we want.
Maybe.
Fascinating. That's really fascinating. And what was the teach? I mean, is the teaching in herbal Tibetan medicine? I mean, is it what we would like the thinking of? I've obviously been through a herbal medicine course in Western herbal medicine, but is it like that or is it quite different?
Quite well, I would say it was quite different because it was a transmission.
It was a trans. Okay, go
And so it was all in Tibetan. We had a very amazing translator called Katia Holmes that translated for us.
on.
And we were expected to learn Tibetan. And I wanted to learn Tibetan because I think it's quite frustrating, no matter the skill of the translators, and it was amazing. I'm so grateful to them. But it's nothing like being able to ask the doctor directly your questions.
And how long did it take to learn Tibetan to a
Well,
level
it's a work in progress.
where
But
you could ask the questions, though? Was that a
I
couple of
mean, I think that it's I used to have one of the doctors took me under his wing and gave me tutorials every lunchtime with a friend. There were two of us, and we were able to really learn medical vocabulary and ask things about that. But I couldn't go and ask for a cup of tea in a cafe or anything normal. But I could ask someone like, is your liver hurting or something? And
No, I've met some strangely psychoanalysts who are into French psychoanalysts and often have a psychoanalytic conversation with their teachers, but they wouldn't be able to have, chat about their kids or anything. Very interesting. And do you read Tibetan as well?
yeah, so Akon Rinpoche asked us all to study Tibetan. And I mean, this is an excuse, but it is quite difficult to
To
keep
say,
up the learning when you don't have people to practice with. But last year, I had it on my bucket list that I was really going to get this sorted out. And I'd done quite, I'd got quite a lot of learning and a lot of vocabulary, but not enough. And my reading was painfully slow. And every morning I do a spiritual practice that is in Tibetan.
right,
And I could very slowly read it from the Tibetan text, but it would have taken me about 5 hours or something. So I actually got the opportunity to do an intermediate Tibetan language course, that's based at Oxford, and it was an online, and there were three of us keen students that were accepted onto the intermediate. And my goodness, that was tough because I think our tutor, who was absolutely amazing, did not take any prisoners. Like there were 2 lessons a week, but it was almost like a full-time job doing all well, I expect you to have done this and learnt that by it was really harsh.
right.
And also we had speed reading tests and things.
Oh,
And I think I gave up. It was from October to February. I didn't do anything else apart from what the bare minimum for my practice. And I was just studying my Tibetan. And I'm really happy to say that suddenly this door has been opened for me where I can look at Tibetan manuscripts and actually be able to read them slowly. I mean, not perfectly, and translation is still quite complicated, but I can certainly read herb names and properties and things like that. And I can do my spiritual practice from Tibetan script in a reasonable amount of time, like
It's like
30 minutes.
I remember some years ago now, so it might have been 10, might have been 20, at the RA in London, they had you probably went, oh, if you'd known, of Tibetan medical scrolls, which are,
Oh, right.
and they had them all unrolled and stuck to the walls. And I mean, you've obviously seen them, but there was, and they're just, I mean, the colors are so vibrant. And I remember
Yeah.
seeing all the Tibetan writing, saying like, God, this is so frustrating. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, because it was done as an arts thing rather than like because it was at the RA, there's a very minimal description of what on earth is actually happening, and with all these like
Mm,
art intertwined with people and writing and stuff.
mm.
Yeah, and I
I
remember.
think it is so artistic, isn't it? And I think just even looking at the letters, and even if you don't understand them, you can feel that there's something incredible about it.
Definitely. Okay, so you then you finished your Tibetan teaching and immediately went on to do the course. Um, and so yeah, it was 6 years. So you've taken 10 years out of your life to learn basically herbal medicine back to front sort of thing. And when did you start practicing?
I um
Even
I
as a-
graduated the IRCH certainly in those days, I don't know what it's like now, but it was frowned upon to do it too quickly. And
Okay.
I did mine in 6 years, and that was actually considered a bit quick, and it would normally be 7 or 8. But I thought, no, come on, 6 is enough. And and I actually had so I graduated and in October 2006. And I had patients booked in the week after my graduation.
Wow. Okay.
So I hit the ground running.
Running. And where were you at that point?
I was living in West Dorset.
Right to you'd settled in Dorset by that.
I'd settled in Dorset and living, yeah, a lovely place with the garden and I'd got a herb field. Well, actually, that comes a bit later, but a nice garden and 2 young kids, and I was working from home doing my herbal clinic and also doing 2 other full-time jobs to make ends meet. Which is, I know what it's like for anyone listening that's if they're at that stage, like it's so tough, isn't it? Trying to build up a practice and still put food on the table. But it's possible to do.
And presumably you had in the back of your mind all this time is like, I've got to do like the stuff the Lama asked me to do, sort of.
Yes. It
Okay.
it was definitely.
So what
I
was
am
it?
sorry, go on.
Oh, no, 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 what you can say.
I just it was really nice to have in those days because I still had quite regular contact with my Lama, Akon Rinpoche. So, I was able to get that feedback,
Nice, yeah.
which shouldn't be necessary, but it's nice to hear.
No, of course, especially.
And I also bumped into, or somebody rang me out of the blue a few years ago and said that he used to be a monk at Samiling and he was on the reception desk at Samiling. And he told me that Akon Rinpoche had said to him once that one of his students was combining Western medicine, Western herbal medicine with Tibetan medicine, and he was really happy about it. And I only found this out a couple of years ago after he died that he'd said that. So I felt like, oh, that's nice.
And when did you open your little apothecary then?
So I had my apothecary in the dining room of that house. So I had people would come there, but
Mhm.
it's a bit of a nightmare always having to
Yeah,
tidy
no.
the house up. Um, and I really yearned for having my own space, but that didn't come until I was forced into it because we moved to Castle Carey and we moved into a small house.
Right,
So I was forced to take the leap and get a high street premises,
right.
which felt very grown up at the time.
What, and what did you call your apothecary then? And was that when you, and why?
So yeah, so the yeah, my business is called Mirobalan Clinic, and Mirobalan is a Tibetan medicine. It's a type of plum. Actually, probably you know about myrobalans because they do grow here, but they're like a bitter crab.
I only recently found out they grew here.
Okay, but
Not
they
because
are
I'm looking into
the
to get myrobalans from it, it's because I was reading some quite different book. It's like, oh, bloody hell, that's like that's what this clinic is called.
Ironically, I'm not growing them myself. I should do, but they do hold a very special place in the Tibetan pharmacopoeia. And so, for example, the medicine Buddha is depicted as holding a sprig of myrobalan in
Oh,
his right hand. So it's got immense spiritual significance. So when I was thinking about, I didn't really want to call my own name, have that as my business.
yeah, yeah.
That felt a bit too, I don't know, it just didn't feel comfortable.
No, no, I
So
think.
I wanted to hide behind a name, and I had a dream, and it came up quite strongly that it was going to be Miroblan Clinic. So even though nobody can pronounce it, I don't care.
And are you still Myrobalan Clinic,
Yeah.
even though you've now moved to the Bremer
Yeah,
Heritage?
no, it moves around with me, the entity.
It'll always be for me your little shop in Castle Cary, which is
Oh, yeah, it was so nice when you came to see me.
um, but and so you're practicing in a Tibetan and a Western way at the same time, or one to
Yeah.
one? So you'd think, okay, and would you literally use both sort of theories and herbs and stuff? I mean, obviously, must be a big overlap between the herbs.
Well, so I think the main thing about it is that Tibetan medicine looks at the case from a very energetic
Right.
perspective.
Yes.
And I'm I resonate very strongly with the Western herbal energetic approach as well.
Right.
But I think that it's so helpful to see a patient's case through different lenses.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when a patient comes, I find that I'm really thinking about their case more along the Western herbal lines. But other times when it's the patient walks in and I can just see what's going on from a Tibetan lens. And then of course the joy of that is that you can also run your ideas through the Western filter to make sure that what you're prescribing is going to be appropriate. Because most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I am prescribing Western herbs, but on a kind of Tibetan medical influenced
Absolutely.
treatment plan. And a lot of it comes down actually to diet and lifestyle before herbs, because it's considered unethical to treat a patient with herbs if you haven't advised them on their diet and lifestyle for their constitution.
And do you ever get followers of Tibetan Buddhism coming to you specifically because, like, that's what I want, and they've heard of you
Yeah.
in the grapevine, which is really nice as well.
Yeah, it's so lovely actually. People do gravitate towards me for that reason. But other times when somebody might not have particularly come because of it, because of the
Hmm.
Tibetan angle, I find it so helpful to be able to, it's a good conversation starter for people to look at their health in a different way. So, because Tibetan medicine is overtly mind, body, and spirit, you
Hmm.
can't separate those out.
Yes.
Yet, I think in Western herbal medicine, it can be a little bit difficult to bring up those aspects, especially in an early consultation. You're not going to dive into that.
Well,
But
we've
with,
in such a materialistic culture that some people
yeah,
have a very sort of visceral reaction to it,
yeah.
and
But I think that, I never would proselytize, I always
no, of course not.
respect. I've got, clergy that come to see me and we have a great
You're just
chat.
around like you're not scared to ask the questions.
No, and I think that you see Tibetan system is humoral. So you've got three different humors, quite similar to Ayurveda.
Okay.
And but the thing is that when each one of those is unbalanced,
Hmm.
there is a meditative antidote that one can advise. And
Yes.
it's quite, not all patients will get this chat, and maybe it won't be in the first consultation, but sometimes I'm able to say, um, you are presenting, if I were to look at your case from Tibetan medicine, you're presenting as having an imbalance of this humor. And
Right.
this humor is associated with sleeplessness, anxiety, mood swings, blood sugar swings, symptoms that shift around the body that are
Yes.
confusing. And people really think, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And then I say, and in Tibetan medicine, that type of presentation, it's really critically important to eat regularly and sleep regularly and have nourishing food. So and they say, oh, like, that makes sense. But then I also say things like, and it ultimately, um, if you're suffering with those kind of conditions, it's good to look at cultivating some kind of stillness practice and generating, more of an idea of non-attachment. But, you were not going to go in with that at the beginning and unless somebody's expressing
Yeah.
an interest.
Yeah. And obviously, well, that's how I came to know about you. Your book, Self-Sufficient Herbalism, is very, very popular, and you're very associated with the whole self-sufficient movement.
Thanks to you for publishing it, Ollie.
Um, but how did that come about? How did you start introducing so much self-sufficiency into your practices? Was that right from the beginning because your forestry expertise and your interests, or you could tell us about it?
I think that I noticed because I absolutely love plants and I love trees and I love being out in nature. So it made sense to me that I wanted to grow and gather my own herbs. Also, when I was studying at the IRCH, one of my tutors, Barbara, she made all her own tinctures and grew all of her own herbs. And I actually thought everybody did that. And I was so shocked when I graduated and I started mixing with other herbalists, and I was really shocked that nobody particularly did that in those days. Not many people. And I kept thinking, what's going on? Because it's so important to connect with the actual herb and know what it looks like when it's growing.
My favorite bit of herbalism is making I mean, almost more than seeing patients, just a bit of an embarrassing admission, but I really, really love it. Um, but so yeah, no, I quite understand that. And
No, it's not an embarrassing admission. I think it's good.
and
I
I,
wanted to, I also heard a lot because my kids had encouraged me to sort of start going on social media and things.
right,
And
yes,
came that exposed me to other herbalists and also herbalists from different countries, especially, a lot of US herbalists were on. I mean, there still are, but in those days, like I think they were early adopters.
yeah.
And it was so, so interesting to read about other people's experience. And also, of course, there's a different framework that US herbalists work in. And it was so interesting to make that connection. But I think basically, I noticed that there was a lot of negativity around dried herbs. So when people were picking their own and making tinctures, there was a lot of sort of blanket statements around, oh, but it's got to be fresh, otherwise it doesn't work. And having studied agriculture and learnt about hay making and
Right, yes,
all of that. And I'd been drying my own herbs for a while, and I was thinking that can't be right because you're removing the moisture content, you're doing it carefully, you've got this concentrated nourishment in there that can be a medicine, and your cows and sheep eat hay and they thrive. So it just to me it just seemed a bit that it was likely that the herbs maybe people had got that impression because they hadn't been dried well or harvested well. And then I started thinking more about it. And then I got on a bit of a mission about I needed to try and put forward that point of view about connecting more with the herbs and actually learning how to process them in a way that preserves them. And there's nothing wrong with making tinctures from fresh herbs, by the way, but I just think we should if we're in practice and we want to have year-round continuity of supply, it's really helpful to have some dried herbs as well.
and I think there's also Well, there's probably two factors. One is the laziness factor. It's like, no, do I really have to dry these, or can I just chop them up and chuck them straight into the
Well,
tin?
that's one way of thinking about it.
I mean, that's a cynic in me. The other one, for me, was always it's like, oh God, like how will I know when they're done, when they dried enough, sort of thing, or when are they over dried? What if I
Mm,
get it wrong, sort of.
mm.
It's that, which again, your book addresses wonderfully, sort of thing.
Mm.
And I mean, I tincture and sort of 50/50, and yeah, so it just depends on the herb, how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
and how full my drying things are as well. So yeah,
Oh, that's so cool. I get so many messages from people who say that it's changed their way that they relate to herbs because of that book. And it's very humbling, that I had such massive imposter syndrome when I wrote that book. And I kept saying like, oh, but I'm not a proper author. And I still get messages, like not every day now, but a few a week for people saying how much it's changed the way they work. And it's really
people find
lovely.
these things, and I think it's interesting herbal medicine because in many ways it's a very forgiving therapeutic because you can't really give too many or too few herbs unless you're using Schedule 20 sort of thing. So it doesn't really matter if you've got the temperature wrong by 5 degrees or it's overcooked or undercooked. What you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think people worry about that too much. I remember when I was training people, like, oh look, I gave them 40 mils of this tincture rather than 30. And it's like, come on,
Mm,
you know.
mm.
But it's so nice to have like actually we know now we have to do it like this sort of thing, and then you can just do it, and then of course you get experienced at it, and you think actually it's going to be like this, or my agrimony actually you need to do it a little longer because it's very wet, or the other way around, etc.
Yeah.
You can use your own, the stuff you're picking is always slightly different. It's like the I remember you gave me some eyebright plant when I came to visit you, and I thought, God, this is enormous because the eyebright that grows on the South Downs is absolutely minuscule. I could never hope to, I'd be there all day to get enough to get a teaspoonful of tincture out of it. And it's so interesting that all these plants are localized as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're slightly different depending where they came from, where they're grown. It's fascinating, the whole thing.
But don't you think that, when we've gathered something ourselves and made something from it, we've got a real heart connection with it.
And
And it's just not the same if you buy in a bottle of
it
stuff.
definitely works better, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, absolutely. So you can make stuff like marjoram grows like sweet marjoram grows like bilio in my garden for whatever reason. And I thought I'd tincture some, and then you start looking up. It's not often used marjoram tincture, but actually it's really good for all sorts of things. And and often these things come up. And you get a patient who think, "Oh God, spot on! That's exactly what they need." So it's
Yeah.
very fascinating like that as well.
Oh, yeah, that's synchronicity.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so tell us about your giant herbal mandala in Wales and what's
oh, that one. Well, when I was talking about all this backstory about going to Sammy Ling and all the rest of it, um, now when was it? And I just started my clinic in uh West Dorset. So I was graduating that year. I hadn't actually fully started it. And
hmm
I got summoned to Sammy Ling by Akon Rinpoche. And I was a bit sort of what's going on because I'm normally the one pestering him, like, please can I have an interview. But I got summoned. Um, and it was, can you be here next weekend? And of course, I dropped everything and went up there. And there was a small gathering of people who basically we all were given tasks. And I was asked to grow Tibetan herbs in the West.
Right.
And my friend Betty was asked to grow them she had a piece of land in Spain and she also had some land in Gloucestershire at the time. And so we were the two that were asked to grow the herbs. Um, but there was a stipulation that it had to be on land that we owned,
Right. Okay.
which was a bit of a curved ball. But so I did um I did borrow a piece of land on a farm as a temporary measure because I thought I could build up my stock.
Yes.
But really it took between 2006 and 2023 to be able to manifest that. So I just feel like I can now hopefully tick off all the things that I was asked to do, although I don't know, maybe not. But the idea was to grow the herbs in the shape of a mandala that is the medicine Buddha mandala. So all the herbs are arranged energetically according to the direction and the tastes and the qualities of the herbs. And it is a huge project. I'm probably a bit mad. And my husband's so supportive and amazing, and he does a lot of mowing. And we were there the other day, and he said he walked 17,500 steps mowing. Um, but it's a work in progress, and it's a beautiful space to be in.
And
And
they're
I
all,
feel like I'm going to do it because I was asked to do it.
and are the Tibetan herbs happy in the Welsh climate?
Yes.
Oh,
There's a whole medicinal woodland where the trees are absolutely thriving because they obviously like the rainy weather.
right, yes.
And when I turned up um, a few days ago, I was so thrilled to see that I had a Tibetan rhubarb that I'd planted. And I could see that the previous time that I was
Yeah,
there, I could see it sort of creating a bud.
yes.
And as we went into our herb field and sort of went up towards the mandala garden, I could see this enormous
Oh, that's the best.
flower spike of this Tibetan rhubarb. And I was just beside myself with excitement. And I rushed into the mandala garden. I was taking lots of photos, but it's about 8 foot high at the moment. And I
Wow.
think that's a good endorsement of it saying that it loves it where it is.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
I
Well,
mean, so do the weeds. I mean, we do work really hard to try and keep them down, but the Tibetan herbs are generally doing really, really well.
wonderful, isn't it? Well, I suppose they knew it would all work out the
I
way.
think so. I mean, they must. I think that place is the right place. I mean, the soil is perfect, and the aspect, like everything. We did look at a lot of different places, and there's just a lot about that piece of land that's
Perfect.
very. I think it feels very special, but also just the soil and everything and the climate is really perfect.
The local farmer and local slightly bemused, or
Yeah, but they're so supportive.
oh,
And Mark and I have been learning Welsh for the past 3 years. And our neighbours are Welsh speakers. And I think the fact that we're making the effort
yeah.
in our perhaps not brilliant accent, but they're so supportive and they honestly can't do enough for us. And they always invite us in for a cup of tea. They always walk over and come and chew the fat with us. I love leaning on the gate and asking him how his ewes are doing and practicing my Welsh. And it's really fun. And they're just so friendly, wonderful people. I feel that's so lovely to be there.
And do you have a sort of a date in your head, like thinking, I think this will be finished in 2032 or something,
I
or
don't know if I'm still around. Um, I don't know. I think it's really getting there, and I don't know if a garden is ever really
well,
finished.
of course, but you could be see it as a mandala maybe in a couple of years, sort of. So,
Well, and also its location is secret at the moment because we're not there all the time. And there's lots of amazing things like not the golden seal, the Solomon seal is all so much Solomon seal. It's just gorgeous. But so it is a secret location. But Ma went onto Google Earth,
oh yes.
had a look, and it's mind blowing that you can see that mandala from space.
Oh my God. Oh my
If
goodness.
if
Yeah,
you zoom in,
zoom in a bit. Wow, you might have to send me a little pic out of
I
context.
might have to if you're sworn, but if
Passwords.
you reveal it, I'd have to kill you and eat you or
No,
something.
and I'm not on social media really. So
No,
no,
but I think if the structure of the mandala is there, and it's just a question of gradually filling up.
plants and
There's a lot there. It just doesn't look like a
no,
banana.
I know. But then that's what plants are really good at, isn't it?
Yeah, they do.
That's wonderful, Lucy. And I usually end up with saying, have you got any other projects? But that seems like more than enough.
I think that's enough, isn't it, Ollie?
So thank you so much for coming on the Polypody Review. It's absolutely fascinating, and you have such a fascinating life as well. And well, look forward to talking to you more sometime, and hopefully meeting up soon as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.